Welcome, I'm Bev Adams. I own an independent paper crafting business showcasing products from Stampin' Up. I made this gorgeous card with products from Stampin' Up, and you can see that it stands up. I sell these products and also a few items to make crafting more convenient. I have the free detailed directions for this project on my website, and you'll also find links to the products that I used. You can just click those links for the products that you would like and be taken to my online store at Stampin' Up. You'll see where to find all of that at the end of this video, so don't worry about taking notes. It's time to put stamps, ink, and paper together. These products came from I think it's called a Super Suite. In the Super Suite, there are two bundles, the Gallery Blooms and the Gallery Blooms dies, and we are going to use this stamp and this die and these frames. And also in the suite is the beautiful motifs, and I am primarily using the dies, this one, and these two. So I use that frames die to cut these pieces, and actually when you use the die cut there's another piece that's larger, but I'm cutting this from 6x6 paper, so I just cut it at 3 inches. My card base is basic beige, and it is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, and also scored at 2 3/4. I have a piece that's 4 by 4 1/4 for the inside of the card. This piece of basic beige is 2 1/2 by 4 1/4, and this will go inside that frame. I have a piece of pecan pie. This is 4 by 5 1/4. And I have a piece of Lost Lagoon, and this is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8. My ink is pecan pie, and I will be using the Calypso Coral and the Lost Lagoon Stampin' Blends. I'm going to cut the fern die from the bottom of this piece, and I'm going to cut the fern die from the very bottom of this, and I am going to be using this same piece for this layer that goes under. So I want to leave a border, but it's a tiny border, so as long as I don't go up more than halfway, I will be just fine. So I have the thick number 1 platform, the number 2 die cutting plate, my cut up plate, my cardstock and the die, and cover it up by another clear plate. Now this is a very delicate die, so I'm going through a couple of times. So do save this piece. Do be careful when you pull this out, because look at how fine that is. I have already die cut this piece, but I wanted to show you that I need to put that way up in the corner as close as possible. In fact, perhaps I could have gotten a little closer, but I want to be sure and get as far up as I can. This piece is going to be going inside, and it's kind of an extra piece. I need to have something as a block, and so I'm using this die piece as a block, and I didn't want there to be a hole in the back of my card, so I am using a second layer there. And where you put this block depends on how steep of an angle you want this to be. So if you want the card, that piece to stand up nice and tall, you want to put your die cut here, but keep in mind that your greeting or whatever that you want to add is going to be visible when you've got your easel open. Maybe you want to put it way down here, but then that is pretty low. I found that if I put it right in the middle, it does a pretty good job of standing up straight, and I can put my greeting here. So I want to have these get pretty flat, pretty parallel with the edges of the card. I love that these dies only cut out the partial, so you do want to probably fluff it a little bit so that it sticks up. So I want those to be close to the top, and that's just so that it holds it up a little bit, so it does act as that stop. We don't want it to be flat. And I might as well go ahead and put this in my card while I'm thinking about it. A couple of times I have made this card and forgotten. I've already put the dimensionals on it, so I forget that I need to glue this down also. And this will have 1/8 of an inch border. Okay, so they'll stick up enough to catch. I don't know if I mentioned, I also have a 2 3/4 by 4 1/4 piece of basic beige, and that's what I'm going to use to stamp with. So I've got the flower. I wanted to point out that when you are using Stampin' Blends to color, you need to use a Memento ink. And they talk about Memento ink because it is a water-based ink. So Stampin' Blends, those are alcohol ink. So with Stampin' Blends, you want to use Memento ink because it is water-based. And so the alcohol and the water don't mix well. And so if you use the Memento for your stamping your image, color it in with alcohol. But if you use watercolor or the watercolor pencils or the Stampin' Write markers, those are all water-based. And if you use the Memento, that will probably blend a little bit and you will lose the crispness of your stamped image. So you want to use StazOn, and StazOn is an alcohol. So these are all water. So you want to use alcohol and water, alcohol and water. Don't use the same type of ink with your stamped image and your coloring. But you know what? Our regular classic ink pads are also water-based. So I've found that it's just fine to use our classic inks for Stampin' Blends. So I'm going to use Pecan Pie to stamp my flower. So then I can use the light Calypso Coral. You could use other colors, but I really like the Calypso Coral and the Lost Lagoon and the Pecan Pie together. I think they look beautiful. I am leaving these kind of the flower centers. I'm just not coloring that. I'm leaving it white. Otherwise, I'm just kind of scribbling over the flower images. And you see that there's not any mixing going on. The ink, the Pecan Pie ink is just as crisp. It's not blending because I'm using alcohol. And then if you want, you can come back in and highlight, or actually low light, the bottoms of the petals. And you can see there's already lines shading here. But the bottoms of the petals, anything that's going underneath. And I'm not doing a lot of blending. I could come through and blend those colors better, but I find I don't really need to. It kind of blends a little bit on its own. And I think that that's just enough to kind of give those petals more definition, separate one petal from the other. Then I'm using the light Lost Lagoon for the leaves. And I didn't really shade these with the dark. You certainly could shade part of the leaves with the dark. If you have followed my YouTube videos and my website, you will have noticed that I have not been posting for the last couple of months. In February, I cut my tendon on my pinky finger, and so my finger is still not straight and not as flexible and strong as it usually is. So coloring is a little bit difficult for me, but I didn't do a bad job on this. If you match the tip of the stem, that's a good place to match. And then the trick is keeping it there while you're die cutting. And usually if I slip in the top and then drop this directly down, but it is moving around. So let me go get some tape. You can use a sticky note or just regular masking tape. I'm using the Post-it masking tape. Stampin' Up! Also sells the masking tape. And that should stay put. So I believe we're ready to put this together. I've already put that inside in. I'm putting this green piece here. It's going to have a very small border on it, and I do want that easel part to work, so I don't want any glue on this part. So you can put glue across the bottom of that crease. And around the bottom of this cutout. And you know you're not going to be gluing the wrong parts. So I'm going to put this piece on. I do want to fluff up this. I want to put my frame together. This inside piece is just scrap, and I want to put glue just around the very edge of this piece. And I'm just wanting a background. It just basically needs to be smaller than the outside of the frame and larger than the inside of the frame. And then I want to slip this up as high as I can get it. So I'm going under here. And I want that corner to go as far as I can up there. And I think that's about as far as I can go. This should hold the top part, but I do want to put some adhesive on the bottom part. And so now I can put this over this. And now that we've got our easel covered up, we can go all the way around this piece. I'm not really wanting to put a lot of glue up here, but at least a little bit in the corner to hold that down. And then we can put our flowers on. And if I had been smart, I would have glued these ahead of time. When you're gluing these, they are so fine, and I really should have glued this ahead of time so that it had a chance to dry. I tend to use little teeny tiny dots, and if you do it in kind of slow motion when you're getting started, put it down, squeeze just until you see a bit of the glue, and then back off, and some of the glue will go back inside the bottle. You want just the teeniest little dots. And that's plenty of glue. I like to put the green down so I have contrast with this background. So I'm going to put the Lost Lagoon Fern down first. And I want this up high. And then I want to put, I don't know if that's Queen Anne's lace. It's kind of a weedy plant. I do not want to line this up with the stems. I want to tip this one way or the other. I'm going to tip it this way. And then I'm going to put this piece on with dimensionals. This is another thing that's sort of hard for me to do with my bunged up finger. And it feels so good to get back into crafting again. I wasn't able to do really anything for about 2 months because I had a big old brace on my hand. And so there it is. And you notice I did not use any greeting on this. You could certainly add a little label down here with a greeting. You could add a greeting up here, or you could even add a greeting down here. But I found that I was waiting to see how I was going to use these cards, because you can use these for anything. Here is the web address where you'll find the free detailed directions and links for the products I used. I also offer lots of resources on my website. Click Shop to see the online exclusives, clearance items, and the products I offer to make crafting more convenient. That includes a cardstock sampler for all the current Stampin' Up! Cardstock and samplers for the Stampin' Up! Cardstock going all the way back to 1997. Click Inspiration to scroll my projects. You'll find the directions and images all the way back to 2011. You may also want to check out the Basics button where I share about stamps, ink, and paper, card cutting, bases, and layers, and some of my favorite tools. Click Getting Organized to find lots of free resources like case inserts, labels for just about every product, catalog tabs, color tools, and much more. More organization means more time for crafting. Click Evernote Current Products to learn how you can share my Evernote notebooks. The Current Products Notebook allows you to search every item by name, number, type of product like stamps, designer series paper, tools, themes like birthday, friend, baby, masculine, and even individual words. I also share a notebook with retired products going back to about 2015, and there's lots more that are older than that. Click Stamp Together if you're in Ventura County and come stamp at my house. You can also join my team if you're anywhere in the United States. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel and also to my website so you don't miss a thing. Thank you so very much for watching. Bye.